captured and tortured by the foreign troops on our land. Imagine that the occupiers' attitude was if they just killed enough Americans, the resistance would stop. But instead, for every American killed, 10 more would take up arms against them, resulting in perpetual bloodshed. Imagine if most of the citizens of the foreign land also wanted these troops to return home. Imagine if they elected a leader who promised to bring them home and put an end to this horror. Imagine if that leader changed his mind once he took office. The reality is that our military presence on foreign soil is offensive to the people that live there, as armed Chinese troops would be if they were stationed in Texas. We would not stand for it here, but we have a globe-straddling empire and a very intrusive foreign policy for decades that incites a lot of hatred and resentment towards us. According to our own CIA, our meddling in the Middle East was the prime motivation for the horrific attacks on 9/11. But instead of reevaluating our foreign policy, we have simply escalated it. We had a right to go after those responsible for 9/11, to be sure, but why do so many Americans feel as if we have a right to a military presence in some 160 countries when we wouldn't stand for even one military base on our soil for any reason? These are not embassies, mind you, these are military installations. The new administration is not materially changing anything about this. Shuffling troops around and playing with Semitics does not accomplish the goals of the American people, who simply want our men and women to come home. 50,000 troops left behind in Iraq is not conducive to peace any more than 50,000 Russian soldiers would be in the United States. Shutting down military bases and ceasing to deal with other nations with threats and violence is not isolationism. It is the opposite. Opening ourselves up to friendship, honest trade, and diplomacy is the foreign policy of peace and prosperity. It is the only foreign policy that will not bankrupt us in short order, as our current actions most definitely will. I share the disappointment of the American people in the foreign policy rhetoric coming from the new administration. The sad thing is our foreign policy will change eventually, as Rome's did, when all budgetary and monetary tricks to fund it are exhausted.
Yeah, it amazes me. We go around the world like a big bully, pushing everyone around, and then when it incites hatred from the people that we do that to, the American people act surprised. Why is that?
Particularly when they retaliate. I mean, they're backed into a corner. We blow up somebody's family. They're going to be mad about that.
Yeah, they tend to not like that, and that's exactly what's been going on in not only Iraq. A million innocent civilians dead. Mainstream press has reported it. You can fact check it. It's the truth. Of course, Bush telling us that this war would pay for itself. What a lie. And here we are bankrupt, beyond bankrupt, and funding these doomed to fail wars. It's just unreal.
Whether we like it or not, we just can't afford this anymore, period.
Whether we like it or not, we need to bring the troops home from Germany, Iraq, Afghanistan, Japan, from around the whole world. We are broke. The United States is the biggest debtor nation in the history of the world. It's over. The music has stopped playing, or it soon will. This was reported by Politico. Kind of goes along with what you said. Congress at work, $1 billion an hour. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has come up with a vivid new way to express his contention that the nation is spending way too much money it doesn't have. McConnell includes the tweaks in his opening remarks on the Senate floor on the 51st day that President Obama has been in office. In just 50 days, Congress has voted to spend about $1.2 trillion between the stimulus and the omnibus, McDonnell says. To put that in perspective, that's about $24 billion a day, or about $1 billion an hour, most, if not all of it, borrowed. There's simply no question government spending has spun out of control. Even as he proposes a huge increase in the reach of government, the president continued to try to show his concerns about spending by making an announcement Wednesday about earmark reform. $1 billion an hour, Brian.
What a bargain, right?
I mean, and they think this is going to work. We're going to spend our way. You know, they're not telling people to save money, which would somehow, you know, maybe have some logic to it, that financial responsibility. We're going to spend our way out of this. It's utterly ridiculous, but I thought that was interesting. Since Obama took office, the Congress is spending $1 billion an hour of your money. You're on the hook for it. Yeah, we're borrowing it from China, printing it out of thin air, but ultimately the Federal Reserve has the American people as a slave on the hook for it.
Trying to drink ourselves sober, right?
Yeah. This was reported this week, thought it was interesting. Obama administration proposes pro-abortion agenda at UN meeting. Reported by John Smeaton. President Obama's new administration has joined forces with extreme pro-abortion campaigners to push a far-reaching anti-life agenda at the United Nations this week, reports Pat Buckley, who has been lobbying in New York on behalf of the SPUC. The Commission on the Status of Women is meeting at UN headquarters in New York to agree on how the world should guide men and women in their respective roles at home and at work. The draft conclusion documents, which has a focus on AIDS, is currently under negotiations until the end of the week. The new U.S. administration is working to introduce pro-abortion language into that document. So once again, we're going to have a very liberal pro-abortion agenda coming from the Obama administration, and of course that should be a surprise to no one. I would also, to change the subject just a little bit, this was reported by American Family Association. Pepsi and Fox team up to push for a sickening Family Guy show that aired this past Sunday. Pepsi gave the gay lifestyle a major push on the March 8th episode of the Fox show Family Guy. Pepsi and Fox Network joined hand in hand to bring a perverted and sickening episode, TV's Family Guy, into the home of millions of America. The show was rated 14 DLSV, meaning that the network opinion was it was appropriate for people 14 years old and older. An opinion obviously shared by Pepsi. It aired during prime time. It had some very, very offensive content, bestiality, gay orgies, some of which I don't think I can say here on the air, but this is the kind of sickness Pepsi thinks is worth promoting. Last year, AFA asked Pepsi to stop promoting the gay lifestyle. Pepsi resisted, said they would do what they wanted to with their money. So here we've got corporations again using their vast fortunes to facilitate the deprivation of our society yet further. So pastors, why don't you look into this and preach this from the pulpit? Advocate that the churches actually stand up for something. It's time to quit singing Whiter Than Snow and get out of the pew and into the street if we're going to take back this country. This past week, a North Carolina judge orders homeschool mother to put kids in public school. March 12, 2009, Raleigh, North Carolina. As reported by the WorldNet Daily on Friday, March 6, Judge Ned W. Mangum stripped Raleigh resident Vanessa Mills of her right to homeschool and ordered her 3 children to enter public schools. Mills was forced to defend her right to homeschool during a divorce proceeding brought on by her husband's unfaithfulness. Mr. Mills admitted under oath to repeatedly committing adultery, even with abundant evidence showing the Mills children are well-adjusted and well-educated. Judge Magnum ruled overwhelmingly against Mears Mills on every point. He stated the children would do better in public school despite the fact that they are currently at or beyond their grade level. Evidence showed 2 children tested several grades ahead. When issuing his verdict, Judge Magnum stated his decision was not ideological or religious. However, he told Mears Mills public school will challenge the ideas you've taught them. State owns your children, not you, you peasant. That's what he's saying. What has emerged is a picture of a clearly liberal judge imposing his beliefs and striking down traditional values. Mangum, a Democrat appointee, disregarded the facts of the case in favor of his own agenda. Such anti-conservative prejudices is increasingly legislated from the bench and appears to be encouraged by the Democratic Obama administration. Again, WorldNet Daily, March 12, 2009, Raleigh, North Carolina.